There are potentially hundreds of decisions in a Warzone match. The ability to execute smart tactical choices is an instinct you have to train. So today, I'm going to share with you my tips for reacting faster among the chaos. I'm going to break down a series of examples divided into early, mid, and late game. The goal is to give you my insight on how I react to intel using speed and awareness. For those who've never seen the SitRep before, welcome to GameSense 101. Mastering the early game, we need to know our drop spot, and that means your loot pool and where crates are. We are going to focus heavily on getting to those loot boxes, knowing where they're at, and how to navigate that POI as quick as possible. The goal is to get guns and money. We will find plates and ammo along the way. Once we have enough money to get that loadout, even by ourselves, we can potentially do that in as little as 30 seconds. Once you hit the buy station menu, note that you can go down once to the UAV line and then go left once to hit the end of the row, and that will put your loadout marker immediately on your screen rather than tabbing over 4 times. This can save you crucial seconds if you're being pushed by the enemy. We can bait enemies off of a roof that are holding us by baiting with shots. They will push down. Players emotionally react to when they think it's easier to fight of a third party, and then you can catch them off guard as they come in one by one. If you're in a spicy beginning, don't forget to take your finger off the ADS trigger. While you're trying to catch targets that are moving very fast, it's easier to lock back onto targets by letting go and re-locking on with that ADS. Don't forget you have a self-revive, and so do your enemies, so make sure you're mashing that early on in a resurgence lobby and using it, and remembering to take out those who are using it as well. Putting pressure on the fly-ins and being aware of the surrounding POIs and how enemies return is huge. Not only can you successfully take down players that are still flying in, you get the fresh intel and communicating that to your team so that you know where to push next. That cuts out dead time in the beginning where you are wasting money on UAVs for players that are already in your vicinity. When they are on top of you, use the cover angles to your advantage and surprise enemies, and make sure you're repositioning after each kill. It is very important that you do not congest too close to your teammates, which makes you an easy wipe if the enemy team comes after you from 2 different angles. Stay far apart as best you can and have several exit strategies while maintaining the lines of sight that we just discussed on the horizon. That way you see when they come back, you're ready to push and you're using that momentum against that one player that's regaining and continuing to apply pressure to a team that's regaining. Mantling over the edges of stair ledges can give you an extra second to get on target as quick as possible. When they are flying back in, we want to use the cover of buildings to continue to keep our visibility low. This will make them feel safer when they come back to regain, and they will be shocked when they get inside the building to find that we're still there. I find this to be one of the easiest ways to continue to farm teams that repeat drop on an area, because you'd be surprised how many people just keep pushing the same building over and over again because they don't see you on the fly-in. We want to master our environment and know our exit strategies at all times, using every window and changing levels to constantly give ourselves the upper hand in the fight. Knowing when to turn around and hold and execute that moment is what's going to give us the upper hand. We need to know how not to push the same angle. We want to find unconventional ways to push multiple players at the same time. In this example here, we found shots and angles through a balcony into a room, and with a little bit of patience, we were able to knock the second enemy and then enter the room through a window that would not have normally been. We don't have enough information on the rest of the room, so we're going to pick a different angle, further confusing the enemy. When we have no information about how many players are in a POI, using this tactic can absolutely change the way you push, especially in the mid game when you're trying to third party and you're not sure where each player is. Pulling back toward your friendly teammates to assist can help by baiting them into the arms of another player, and you can continue to trade those kills, especially as your teammate comes in to assist. And don't forget, if your teammate falls victim to a meat shield, you still can shoot the guy in the face and save the day. Focusing on fly-ins can get you in trouble or other high elevations because you need to be ready to answer people who drop directly on you, listening for sound cues, switching to the appropriate weapon from long range to short, and being ready to take out the guy that thinks he's him. You don't always want to push to elevated surfaces to revive teammates. We want to cover the push and make sure that we're using every angle possible because you'd be surprised how many kills you can get from unconventional angles during the game. Less frequented angles, a distance away, can continue to apply pressure, but makes it incredibly difficult for people to push in unison. If all else fails, you need to be ready to fall back to a better POI where you have more control. When you're falling back, you need to be careful that you're not falling into the arms of a third party. Communicating to your team that you are bringing company with you from behind, that way they can play differently and play inside so you're not caught in the fishbowl of what's going on at the roof of factory and at living quarters behind. So after the call out's made, we move inside the building and continue the fight from the safety of the building. Once again, being inside limits the intel of people flying back for their weapons, which just opens you up to again continually farm the same team over and over again as they try to chase. After some time, they will begin to assemble and try to attack you with multiple teammates, and you need to be ready at entry points to flank aggressive teammates, and then always ready to engage the second or third directly after the first knock. Players will continue to use those confined spaces as protective safe houses. You need to practice different pushes so that you can get them to come out and continue to scramble their fortification, using elevation as well as different positional angles to get in through windows and making sure that you can pick them off one at a time. On the flip side, you can use the gas to help with a team that was once holding you. As they push you out, you're going to look for the solo player and maintain your elevation and your control. We want to get that first knock so that we get the pings and then use the elevation to its maximum potential. Make sure you're shifting around the edges of that elevation and don't overexpose yourself to multiple enemies just one at a time, simply by stepping backwards out of the visibility of the second enemy. Switch to your secondary for faster engagement of the next target. Understand that players are going to emotionally push you based on callouts from their teammate. Listen for audio cues like zips and remember where they can push you from. When it comes to the late game, we are trying to clear out as much position as possible, continuing to use that elevation as we rotate into zone. We don't want anyone shooting us in the back. Always get your opening pick before you push in. Remember that you're going to be pushed by the avenging teammate and use their chase to your advantage through cover. Continuing to advance into the circle and call out to your teammates for assistance. Once you are fully clear and you're down to your last team to fight, be ready for the high IQ opponent. Once you encounter an enemy that looks like this in a flying V, it is an immediate indication that they know how to hold correctly. We don't want to overpeak because the shots are going to come from multiple angles. We need to make sure that every piece of intel that they have is minimized through visibility and change your location. Be ready to react at a moment's notice for their same spreading out situation here. They're scrambling our intel. We're using the safety of the shed and we're going to disable that counter UAV. We're going to continue to take the elevation and follow that circle slide and give us the most clear-cut lines of sight on our enemy during the slide. Don't over push and push down trying to get greedy. An opponent like this is ready for you to do that. Using the hold of the advantage and taking them off one by one. In some scenarios, you're the last player alive and you have nothing. You have no circle slide and you have absolutely no intel other than what is directly in front of you. In this situation here, we have 2 dots, but we're able to land prioritizing the weapon, the gas mask, and then information. We know we have a large bag of cash, and we know where the buy station's at. We're going to use the fly down through the smoke to cover for a full team buyback, and then use our escape route back through the building with that gas mask and rotate the shortest distance back to the main building. We're going to weave our way through that cover, knowing that we cannot go into the open with everything that is happening in the circle. We're going to do our best to avoid the streak and catch them on the rear rotation. Constantly changing directions and communicating with the team for a win that you probably didn't see coming. Sometimes you're not able to get your buyback end game because there's no buy station. You just have to play your timing correctly. Don't panic when you're not in the zone. Get yourself set up with the appropriate elevation to take the fight. Hold the circle slide and prioritize your position so that you can hold those enemies as they rotate in, even without your team. Be very aware of what's on the ground around you, that way you can use equipment to hold enemies in position if necessary. Continue to maximize your position so that you have the elevation, and before you know it, these types of decisions will become instinct. Keep building, keep adapting. SitRep out.